The laughter around the dinner table was sharp as crystal as Claire raised her wine glass with a smirk. "My husband scrubs dishes for a living," she announced to their well-dressed friends, her voice laced with amusement. The guests chuckled politely, some exchanging pitying glances. None of them noticed the quiet figure in the doorway, his hands still bearing the faint red marks from hours in scalding water. Daniel Whitaker didn't react, didn't even blink, but something inside him had shifted irreversibly in that moment. For 5 years, Daniel had endured the subtle digs, the disappointed sighs when he came home smelling of grease and detergent, the way Claire would subtly angle away from him at parties when someone asked what he did. She'd married him fresh out of college, back when his ambition had seemed romantic rather than embarrassing. But as their friends climbed corporate ladders and bought luxury cars, Daniel remained exactly where he'd started, elbow deep in suds at the back of a restaurant kitchen. That night, after the last guest left and Claire retired to bed with a self-satisfied smile, Daniel sat at their kitchen table until dawn. When the first light crept through the blinds, he placed 2 things on the counter: divorce papers with his signature already drying, and the small notebook he'd been secretly filling with restaurant concepts, supplier contacts, and financial projections for 3 years straight. Then he walked out with nothing but a duffel bag and a resolve that would have terrified Claire if she'd been awake to see it. The months that followed would have broken most men. Daniel rented a room so small he could touch both walls when he stretched his arms, its single window overlooking a dingy alley. He worked 18-hour days between 2 restaurant jobs, his hands permanently cracked from the constant immersion in hot water. While his co-workers blew their paychecks on drinks and gadgets, Daniel saved every spare cent in a shoebox under his bed. His meals consisted of kitchen scraps and dollar store noodles. His clothes all came from thrift stores, and his only luxury was the occasional cup of coffee to fuel his late-night study sessions, poring over business textbooks from the library. People called him obsessed, a fool. Claire, when she heard through mutual friends what he was doing, simply rolled her eyes and told everyone he was having some pathetic midlife crisis. But Daniel had discovered something powerful in his poverty and humiliation, a clarity of purpose that insulated him from all the doubters. He wasn't just saving money, he was studying. Every shift in that dish pit taught him about kitchen workflows. Every interaction with suppliers gave him insights into food costs. Every customer complaint he overheard revealed what diners truly wanted. After 2 years of this monastic existence, Daniel finally had enough to buy his first food truck. A battered old thing that had been sitting behind a diner, its tires flat and its grill rusted. The owner laughed as he took Daniel's cash, certain the kid was throwing his money away. But Daniel spent every night for months restoring it, teaching himself welding, electrical work, and engine repair through YouTube tutorials. When he finally unveiled Whitaker's Eats, with its gleaming red paint and simple hand-painted logo, even the other food truck vendors dismissed it as another doomed venture. The first month was brutal. Daniel would park in prime locations only to watch people walk past to more established trucks. Then one rainy Tuesday, a food blogger ducked in to escape the downpour and ordered Daniel's signature short rib grilled cheese, a recipe he'd perfected through hundreds of test batches. The next morning, her review called it the best $8 meal in the city. By lunchtime, there was a line around the block. Success came slowly at first, then all at once. Within a year, Daniel had a fleet of 3 trucks. Within 3, he opened his first brick-and-mortar location, a tiny 20-seat spot that earned a Michelin bib gourmand within 6 months. Investors started calling. Food magazines wanted profiles. And through it all, Daniel maintained the same relentless work ethic, the same attention to detail that had kept him scraping plates years earlier. Meanwhile, Claire watched from the sidelines of her new life with a hedge fund manager, her smug certainty slowly curdling into something else as Daniel's name kept appearing in business sections and lifestyle magazines. When he made his first million, she told friends it was a fluke. When he hit 10 million, she stopped mentioning him altogether. And when the New York Times ran a feature on the dishwasher who built a $100 million empire, she realized with dawning horror that the man she'd dismissed as a failure had become everything she'd once claimed to want, just not for her. The final twist came not from any deliberate revenge on Daniel's part, but from his simple, steadfast decency. When a reporter asked what motivated him during those early, struggling years, he didn't mention proving anyone wrong or getting rich. "I just wanted to see how good I could become at something," he said with a shrug that made his tailored suit look almost incidental. It was this quiet humility, this lack of bitterness that ultimately made Claire's regret so acute. Because Daniel hadn't just succeeded, he'd become the kind of man who didn't need to gloat about it, which only made his success sting all the more. Years later, at the opening of his flagship restaurant in what had once been Claire's favorite luxury department store, Daniel would pause at the entrance and remember the feel of dishwater on his skin, the weight of all those mocking glances. But the memory carried no anger now, just the quiet satisfaction of a man who had turned every no into fuel, every dismissal into motivation. And when he spotted Claire in the crowd that night, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read, he simply nodded politely before turning to greet his guests, a billionaire who still remembered how to scrub a dish until it shone.